everyone, welcome to the Dyl Pickle Movie Network. I am Dylan Randazzo, and welcome to my review for the newest comedy to hit theaters this weekend, and that is Joyride. Joyride lives up to its name. It is a very joyous ride of a film. That's a pretty cliche thing to say, and it's been in pretty much every review I've read for it, every positive review at least. But it's true. It is a joy ride.
My precious little filthy orbitses. Do you guys have that here?
Yeah, we have. It's all over the world.
Adele Lim is the director here. This is actually her directorial debut, but she was previously a co-writer on Raya and the Last Dragon and Crazy Rich Asians. Raya and the Last Dragon wasn't a huge hit because of the time it came out with the pandemic and all, but Crazy Rich Asians was a massive phenomenon. Crazy Rich Asians came out in late summer of 2018 and made a crap ton of money. But it wasn't just the monetary profits that made Crazy Rich Asians a notable film, but the representation, not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera as well, and the audiences that found themselves through that film. It was a really big film for Asian audiences, so much so that Ke Huy Quan, the Best Supporting Actor winner for Everything Everywhere All at Once last year, basically returned to acting because of that film. He said in an interview that seeing other people that look like him in this mainstream blockbuster comedy made him want to get back into acting. So Crazy Rich Asians was a super influential film, and it just paved the way for more amazing talents to start showing their work to the world, not just in an indie light, because there's a lot of great stuff happening with diversity in the independent film scene, but in a mainstream blockbuster light. And Joyride is another great example of showing a very vibrant, a very energetic, a very funny, but also a very heartfelt culture to a mass audience in the biggest and sometimes craziest and wildest way possible. And I think that's what Adele Lim does so successfully here, that she did so successfully with Crazy Rich Asians, is bringing a lot of great comedy to the piece, but also a lot of great heart. The film follows two best friends, Audrey and Lolo, as they travel to China. Audrey, played by Ashley Park, is going to China also to try to strike this big business deal.
Adventure. I heard that if you keep up with Chinese businessmen, they respect you more.
Meanwhile, Lolo, played by Sherry Cola, is trying to make it as an artist, a very particular style of art, which I will not spoil. The two of them go to China. Audrey meets up with her former roommate, Kat, played by recent Oscar nominee Stephanie Hsu.
Best friends reunited.
And Lolo brings along her cousin Deadeye. Deadeye is a bit of an outcast. They really enjoy K-pop bands. They are presented as a little weird at first, but the more you watch the film, the more you get to kind of understand Deadeye and where Deadeye's coming from. Deadeye, played by the wonderful Sabrina Wu, who is hilarious in this film, a real scene stealer, especially because I knew Ashley Park, Sherry Cola, and Stephanie Hsu. I'd seen previous work of theirs. I'd seen Ashley Park on Broadway in Mean Girls. She was hilarious. I saw Sherry Cola in a recent film at Sundance, Shortcomings, and I, of course, saw Stephanie Hsu in a lot of Broadway shows, but especially Everything Everywhere All at Once. But I had never seen Sabrina Wu in anything, and they really impressed me with their work.
My legal name is Vanessa. Call me Deadeye.
Where did that come from? You know, I think I get it.
But anyway, these four friends go to China. Of course, Audrey is the one who's looking for this business deal. But when she meets this guy that she wants to partner with, the partner basically says he doesn't feel like he can connect to her because he doesn't feel like he knows enough about her and her culture and her ties to her Chinese culture.
If you do not know where you come from, how do you know who you are?
And that's really interesting for Audrey because Audrey is a child of adoption and her parents are not Chinese. She was adopted from China when she was young, and she has an image of her birth mother but never got to meet her birth mother up to this point. So she realizes when she's in China, because she's in China and because her business partner or soon-to-be business partner wants to get to know more about her, she decides to then go searching for her birth mother. And I think that's one key element to this film. This isn't just about four friends going to China and doing a bunch of crazy stuff. It's not like The Hangover, where it's just kind of recounting all these funny little beats here and there and meant to shock you every turn. But it's really about this woman, through the process of searching for her birth mother, getting in touch with her own roots and exploring what it means to be Chinese Now, when you look at the trailers, it kind of gives off a vibe of being just a raunch fest. Every single joke is dirty, every single moment is a little vulgar, and there are vulgar moments, there are very dirty moments. This is a movie that is very open and positive about sexuality, sex in general, scenes with drugs, all the raunchy stuff you'd expect from a big studio comedy. But I think sometimes people lose track of the fact that trailers are made to entice people to come see the movies. And some people aren't necessarily going to see a trailer and want to go see it unless something really memorable grabs them.
You look like you've had a lot of things in your asshole.
Not a lot of things, just one thing, but maybe different varieties of that one thing.
And in this case, the scene of them hiding cocaine by putting it up their butts is probably the thing that's going to grab people's attention more so than this really emotional story about a woman reconnecting with her Asian roots as she travels back to China. Now, that I would definitely be sold on that premise, but you got to think mainstream, and I get why they went so heavy into the vulgarness in the marketing.
Did you get the Coke bags out?
Yeah, but only 7, and I think I put in 8.
Just push, pull, twist it. It's not a puppet, it's my asshole.
But I think for anyone who is a little turned off by that and says, that's not really my cup of tea, granted, it's not everyone's cup of tea, and you have every right in your own opinion to see it or not to see it. But I do want to let you know, and this was the same feeling I had toward the film No Hard Feelings, is that a trailer is not a movie. And I think in this case, and like I said, No Hard Feelings, I think it's presenting itself to be a lot raunchier, a lot crazier than it actually is. And that's, again, not to say this isn't raunchy, isn't crazy at times, but I think there's a lot more heart to the story that the original trailers didn't really need to sell because they wanted to sell it on its comedy. And I think that's one of the great surprises to Joyride and No Hard Feelings, I guess. I guess it's kind of a joint review of both movies, is that there's an incredibly heartfelt story once you start to watch the film and realize what it's really about. And that's what's so amazing about Joyride. You go from crying one moment from the comedy to then crying one moment from the heart. Like every film that deals with friendships, of course, there are rifts along the way. For example, Lolo and Kat, they don't get along too well.
Ready to lose to a celebrity?
Deadeye doesn't really fit in with the group. Audrey and Lolo are having a little bit of animosity with one another because Audrey doesn't know how to break the news to Lolo that she might have to move to California and move away from her best friend. So there's little tensions between these friends that I think makes for some inciting conflict that can later either be resolved or blow up in an even bigger fashion to then be hopefully resolved later. But I think the way they excel the drama and propel the drama is very exciting in Joyride. Again, I can tell you about all the gags and all the funny jokes and all the great humor, but I think that's something you should experience for yourself. But what I really want to stress in this review and why I really want people to see this film is for the heartfelt moments, for those moments with the friends where they have these rifts or these conflicts and how they resolve them, or how they learn to kind of stick up for themselves in their friendships and tell one another when they're upset with one another. But also, especially with Audrey's character, this search for her heritage and the growth she experiences along the way. I just really think it's got some really profound and heartfelt things to say that you would never get from the trailers, and that you wouldn't even get from the first maybe 30 minutes of the film. The first 30 minutes is kind of setting it up to be the next Hangover, or even to some extent Bridesmaids, even though I think Bridesmaids also has like a really nice emotional core to it. But by the end of this film, like I alluded to earlier, I was crying. I went from crying tears of laughter. I was literally crying because of how much I was laughing.
It's beautiful. Like the noises.
To 20 minutes later, I was crying because I was so emotionally moved by this story. And I think that's why I think more people should check out Joyride and not just write it off. And again, there may be things in the movie that you personally may not be a fan of, and that's your own discretion. That's your own decision to go see this movie or not. But I think if you're going to it expecting that for 90 minutes straight, you're not going to get that. You're going to get a really nice sentimental story. I mean, it's made by the same woman who did Crazy Rich Asians, and that had a lot of heart to it too. And I actually kind of prefer this to Crazy Rich Asians. There really isn't a lot of romance in it. There's a romance side plot with Kat, Stephanie Shu's character. She kind of has her own romantic storyline, but it's more so about her being open because she kind of closes herself off and who she is to her boyfriend. So it's not really about their relationship so much as it is about her as an individual trying to accept and embrace this side of herself that then she can open up to her partner in her relationship. But this really isn't a romance. I mean, they definitely encounter some guys along the way, day that they get involved with. But this is more about friendship and about bonds between friends, but also between parents and family and culture, to where I think that honestly pushes this a little bit above Crazy Rich Asians, which is a really fun movie, has a lot of good humor and a lot of good heart, but is still a romance. You know, it's still a studio romance. So there's kind of beats you expect it to hit. Whereas here, I think it's a little bit more unpredictable because it's juggling a few more things at once. So I really do recommend this film. I think it's really solid. I did kind of bring up No Hard Feelings. I know I didn't do a review on that film, but I think that is another example of a film that is marketed to be so kind of trashy and vulgar and sexy. And there are moments of that, of course, but at the end of the day, that film is also about finding oneself and kind of discovering these truths about yourself that you didn't know, and really forming a nice friendship and bond with someone who can see that other side of you and help bring out the best in you. And I think this is a really cool stretch of films. And I hope Hollywood continues to go down this path of funding these projects that you can advertise as these big, hilarious sex romps, you know, but then at its core be these really heartfelt, emotional stories. Because if it takes marketing cocaine up the butthole to get people in the seats, great, but then it's the emotional story that is going to get people to recommend it to their friends and keep going back to this movie, which I think Joyride does so successfully.
There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this.
So Joyride is definitely a recommendation for me. If you're hesitant about going to see it, I at least got a lot from it, and I promise you, you will find something to take away from it. You can do what I did and go double feature this with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. You know, you go Indiana and then you go Indy asshole. Sorry, that's the last cocaine up the butt joke I will make. Thank you so much for watching. If you go see Joyride, let me know in the comments below what you thought of this film and what you thought of these performances. They're all such great performances. Are you excited to see these actors in more films? And are you excited to see more of what Adele Lim does in her future, in her career? And let me know what other films you're excited to see me review. I mean, we're getting to the big weekend, Barbie and Oppenheimer, the Barbenheimer weekend. It's coming soon, and so is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. So I'm very excited to bring you those reviews very soon, and I will be bringing you next week my retrospective video of my top 10 films of 2013. I'm finally finishing up that video soon, where I was watching 2 months of just 2013 films. 10 years later, I will be reviewing my top 10 here on the channel. I also want to thank all these friends who helped donate as part of the 24-hour subathon in February. They really helped this channel grow, and they are consistent and amazing support system, which I really, really appreciate. And I'm going to shout them out at the end of every review for the rest of the year. So thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.